Hey guys, it's Adam from Pixel and welcome back. Now today, I want to slow things down and get a little bit more personal. And by personal, I don't necessarily mean personal about me, more personal about us as artists, as professionals, as humans. Because I find that although all humans are, of course, human, in that sense of the word, we all have thoughts and feelings and we all have good days and bad days. When it comes to the mind of an artist, the world inside our heads and outside of our heads can be something of a tornado sometimes. And we might not even realize it's happening because it's commonplace for us. It's the way we think, it's the way we feel, it's the way we live our lives. So we tend to take for granted just how many amazingly crazy things we have to juggle emotionally, mentally, professionally, physically sometimes. There's a whole slew of things that we have to contend with. And I wanted to give you some context. I want to just give you an idea of the kinds of things that us artists have to juggle in our minds. For starters, the very career of being an artist is one that is completely unset in stone. There is no one shaped artist. There's no one set design for the world of art. There are as many different styles of art out there. There are many different professional ways of going about doing your craft as there are artists, quite frankly. And as artists, we're not only people that have to juggle our knowledge of information, of data, but we have to train our hands physically. We have to temper our emotions and use them practically. We have to be able to see things that other people in the world can't see. We have to be able to visualize three-dimensional form and gesture. We are students of humanity and science and medicine. We juggle a lot. Furthermore, there's no set guide on how to pursue things professionally. What do I want to do? Where do I belong? Am I more of a sci-fi artist? Am I more of a realism artist? Am I an impressionist? Am I somebody who likes to make dolls at home? Am I somebody who works in a studio and works on professional productions? Is it video games? Is it film? Is it both? Do I work in special effects? Maybe I should learn 3D. Maybe I should stick to 2D. And I'm just kind of touching off of the surface. I'm just grazing the surface. Furthermore, where do we go for guidance? There's a million different places to go for guidance. What kind of guidance do you need? Are you at a time in your life where you need a little bit of tough love and practical advice? Are you at a point in your life where you're all done with the technicality for a little while and you need somebody to you just need to express. You just need to explore things in a very carefree way. Are you somebody that expresses yourself in a very deliberate, very precise, very technical way? Or are you somebody who just creates and allows your canvas to surprise you? There are a million different ways of going about your career. There's a million different careers to have. And there's a million different ways for you to doubt yourself. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to get inside your head and I want to explore some of the doubts or many of the doubts that you might have as an artist. And before I continue forward, I want to make something very, very clear. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I hold no degrees in any of the above. I'm not a philosopher. I'm not a self-proclaimed soothsayer or guru. I'm just Adam. I'm a teacher. I'm an artist. I'm a dad. That's what I am. So understand that I'm coming from a personal place and I want to share with you some personal advice, some wisdom that's been passed down to me over the ages. I want to start with a scenario just to illustrate where I want to go with this. Imagine that you're young and you have a parent who is constantly on your back about watching your temper. Now, you're not necessarily somebody who has anger issues. You handle your emotions as well as the next person. But you have a parent that's constantly reminding you that every single time you lose your cool, you might one day cross the line. You might end up legitimately hurting somebody. You might become a domestic abuser or a wife beater or a husband beater. You could turn into some horrible monster. And every single time you get even slightly peeved, you have that phobia thrown back into your face. Day after day after day. And it starts to fashion in you this belief that anger is wrong. It starts to fashion in you a great insecurity that any time you lose your cool, it could be the beginning of the end for you. You might end up in handcuffs. So what happens to you? What do you end up doing? Well, it starts to manifest itself as an insecurity, as a doubt, as a fear. And when you fear something, those fears tend to be at their worst. They show their faces the most when you're in a vulnerable place. And what better a vulnerable place is there than, well, being really pissed off about something? But because you're afraid of hurting somebody, because you're afraid of what your temper might do to somebody else, you turn that pain and you turn that hurt on yourself. I don't want to hurt anybody else, so I'll hurt myself instead. So maybe you smash something. Maybe you put your fist or your foot through the wall. Maybe you scream at the top of your lungs in rage. Just so long as you don't touch another person. And this happens every single time you get upset. Every single time somebody crosses you, a bully picks on you, somebody shoves you up against the wall, somebody picks on you or belittles you. You turn that pain on yourself. Now, imagine, after all those years of that parent or that guardian or that friend or that lover filling your head with this phobia, with this fear, with this inevitability. One day, they turn around and say, I made it all up. You have never hurt anybody in your entire life. Despite everything that I've said, you're the type of person who doesn't even like to kill spiders. You'll pick them up and put them outside in the garden so that nobody accidentally steps on them or so the cat doesn't get to them. You've never hurt anybody in your entire life. In fact, you're the opposite. You've been a protector. You've always been gentle. You've always been caring. And you've never hurt. You've never even considered hurting anybody else. It's not even in your blood to do that. Imagine how that thought, how that new reality would instantly transform that person's perspective on themselves. Furthermore, imagine how much that reality would transform the way they behave. Because they no longer fear hurting anybody else, it no longer becomes an option. And next time somebody comes up to them and calls them a name or picks on them or shoves them up against the wall, they push that person away, they tell them they don't like it, and they walk away. And their heart rate doesn't even go up by a single beat. Everything stays calm and cool. And they manage to be able to handle that problem with a lot of diplomacy and a lot of balance. Here's the thing I've learned. Here's the big lesson I learned in my life. And it resonates into everything that I've ever done. And it resonates into every relationship that I've ever had, including with my family, with my girlfriend, with my children, with my students, with my friends. People are what you accuse them of being. And if they aren't what you accuse them of being, they will become what you accuse them of being if you try hard enough for long enough. If you call somebody stupid every single day, then every single time that person screws something up or doesn't get a fact right, you nail them to the wall with their ignorance, and you tell them what morons they are. How could they not know something that's such simple information? Everybody knows that. Then that person will grow up with a fear of being stupid. And they'll do everything in their power to prove that they aren't. Or, if they're more passive, they will succumb to the reality that they're idiots, when they never were in the first place. Now, everything that I've done so far, I've externalized. I've painted this picture as somebody on the outside doing this to somebody else. A force outside of yourself that is internalized and changes and manipulates your path in life for good or for bad. But what I want to talk about today is that other person, that other individual, that other entity that is doing exactly that to you every single day of your life, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Any guesses? Of course, I'm talking about you. There's a very good chance that you do this to yourself. And what aggravates that situation, what makes it worse for artists in particular, is because we live in a world of such uncertainty. What is our blessing is also our curse. We have the blessing of being able to make ourselves adaptable in any situation because our passion, our path in life requires us to know many different varying things. We're not just required to be extremely good at law or extremely good at carpentry. We're expected to be extremely good at a whole slew of things. Because as artists, we have to adapt ourselves to any situation. We have to be able to get into the minds of different people from different cultures and different orientations in order to be able to capture them and understand them with an eye of empathy or sympathy, depending on the situation. And because of that, we live in this world of very little solidity. There's very little set in stone for an artist, apart from the fact that we love what we do. As such, any tiny little vulnerability, and vulnerability always comes from ignorance, and in ignorance I mean ignorance of self, that we end up being our worst trolls. We end up being our worst hecklers, our worst haters. And because we're not directing our insecurities at other people, then technically speaking, we're not doing any real harm. Well, here's my wake-up call to you. You are. You're doing yourself a lot of harm. You are creating a script. You are creating a reality out of thin air. In your very gifted artistic way, you are fabricating your own reality. The reality of your own incompetence, the reality of your own inability to keep up with the competition, the reality of your own technical weakness, the reality of your own financial instability or your own lack of being able to make money in the first place, your lack of being able to fit in, your lack of having that style that people are looking for, the lack of adaptability to work in different types of studios, the lack of social skills to be able to schmooze with the big bosses, the lack of coolness that allows you to fit into those big cool studios when everybody's sitting down having lunches or group dinners with the studio. You are utterly riddled with insecurity. Now, of course, I could be doing right now what it is I'm trying to help you get over, and that is convincing you that you're something that you're not. I'm not speaking literally, I'm speaking hypothetically. You might not possess any of these insecurities that I'm describing right now. Or maybe you possess every bloody one of them and you can throw another 65,000 on top of the pile. I know for myself that every single insecurity that I've just mentioned are all ones that live inside me. And notice I didn't speak in the past tense. I speak in the present tense. I feel this today. I feel it right now. I felt it yesterday, I felt it last week, and I'm probably going to feel it in 2 years from now. But the difference between the 15, 20, 25, 30-year-old Adam and the now almost 45-year-old Adam is I've learned how to reanalyze myself. I've learned how to see myself objectively from the outside and ask myself the question, have confidence in being able to ask myself the question, Adam, is that really who you are? And then I can answer myself and say, not really. That's kind of silly to think that. But despite all of my wisdom and my age and all of my years, which aren't that many if you think about it, 4 decades isn't a hell of a lot of time, I still catch myself every single day thinking these feelings. And when you reach out to me in the comments or you email me or message me, And you thank me for helping you through your own insecurities. That does not mean that I have overcome them. It just means that I said something out loud that you've been thinking all along and never thought of saying out loud. What I'm doing by sharing these stories with you is I'm making your thoughts an actual, tangible thing. I'm making it a thing. Because unless somebody actually verbalizes it, it's just a feeling. And when things are just a feeling, you can't see them. You can't touch them with your hands. You can't move them around and analyze them from different angles. They just float around in your head like a cloud. And that cloud confuses you and discourages you and fills you with all these doubts. And that cloud just grows bigger and bigger and bigger until somebody says, hey, there's a big cloud in your head. And as soon as somebody says that, you go, oh yeah, it is a thing. And you pull it out of your head and you look at it. And when you do that, it allows you to let it go. A lot of people ask me the question, where do you come up with all these ideas for these art talks? I come up with all these ideas with these art talks because I'm always analyzing myself. I'm always up in my own head all the time. And it's amazing how many thoughts I have every single day, just as many as you do. I have all of these thoughts in my head and I think to myself, that's something that needs to be spoken about. This is something that nobody ever talks about. It's for that reason that artists like Bobby Chiu, Anthony Jones, Chris Oatley, oh, he's fantastic when it comes to this stuff. They have this ability to verbalize things that every artist deals with, but never realizes is a thing. And when you hear somebody like any of them, or Borodante is another excellent example of this, when they take those very intimate thoughts and they put them on a page for you, boy, do you appreciate them for doing that. Darkened, there's another one who does that. All of these artists have the gift of being able to to hold up a mirror in front of your face and say, hey, look, that's you. And you go, holy shit, you're right. I didn't even realize it. That's why I listen to them all the time. That's why I value what they say so much. It's because that's exactly what they're doing. And that's something that I'm trying to do with you today. I'm trying to hold a mirror up to you and say, hey, all of those things that float around your head, they're actual things. And it's actually a part of who you are. You're an artist. You're a creative person. So you're not only good at creating things that are beautiful, you're not only good at creating things that are compelling, magical, emotional, evocative, you're also really good at creating your own fictional phobias, your own realities. We are so good at crafting believable things out of nothing that we can do that with our own lives with such incredible precision that we end up believing it. And I want to add an ingredient to these thoughts that I've mentioned in the past, and that is something that was passed down to me very unexpectedly at a gym of all places from a friend of mine who's also a fellow artist, 2D and 3D artist, who also went to the same gym as me. And we ended up getting caught up in a long conversation. I've mentioned this before, I'm sure I have, because it's something that's very meaningful to me. And his name is Javier, if you're listening. And Javier is a friend of mine who we don't see each other very often, but he's traveled the world quite a bit. He's an incredibly empathetic person. He's incredibly fascinating. He has the wisdom of a 95-year-old. He's like a young, good-looking version of David Attenborough, who's from South America and has a beard, if you can picture that, right? And he's in very good shape too. And we were standing at the gym, and we were just shooting the shit about art and 3D and all that kind of stuff. And at one point we went off on a tangent talking about more personal things. And I mentioned to him the fact that I had hypothyroid. I had hypothyroidism, and nothing too severe, nothing that was never too terribly unmanageable, but something that was an ordeal for me for a little while. And I went on to say, at the time, it's probably because I smoked for 20 years. I probably did this to myself, smoking for 20 years. And I didn't say it to myself with any level of self-hate. I wasn't feeling shame or guilt to any great degree when I said it. I was just trying to be objectively critical of myself and say, yeah, well, I paid the price for being stupid and doing something irresponsible. Thankfully, I quit years ago, and I said it very nonchalantly, and he stops me. He says, Adam. And he looks at me right in the eyes. And I said, what? And he goes, what did you just do? And like I said, this isn't like, we're not best buddies. We don't hang out all the time. But he got right inside my head and he said, what did you just do? And I said, what did I just do? What did I just do? Why are you looking at me like that? And he goes, why are you blaming yourself? Why are you being so hard on yourself? And I said, well, I'm not being that hard on myself. I'm just stating a fact. And he goes, no, Adam, it's not a fact. There's no reason in the world why you should be so mean to yourself and blame yourself so heavily for something that your body's going through. He said, does anybody in your family have hypothyroid? I said, yeah, my mother does. She goes, well, that's where you probably got it from. It's hereditary. You didn't give yourself hypothyroid by abusing yourself. Now, even if I did, that wasn't his point. He said, he stopped and he said something to me that has resonated in my head my entire life to this day. At the gym, under floodlights. He said, Adam, have some compassion for yourself. Those words hit me so hard because we never give ourselves a chance to care for ourselves. We spend so much of our lives being hard on ourselves and being gentle to everybody else, don't we? Despite the hurricane of thoughts and feelings that go on in our head, we never stop and say, you know what? There's not a goddamn thing that's wrong with you. Stop accusing yourself of being something terrible. Stop accusing yourself of being incompetent, of being stupid, of being fat, being ignorant, of being ugly, of not being good enough, of not being cool enough. Stop doing that. You are none of the above. You are exactly what you accuse yourself of being. And I spent my entire life unapologetically accusing myself of all of these different things. And Javier stopped me and he said, have some compassion for yourself. What he did was he stopped me from being a troll to myself. He stopped me from attacking myself emotionally. He made me reanalyze the words that I used to describe myself to other people, that I do so easily because it's such a reality in my life when in fact it just wasn't. And I started making a daily effort from that point forward of accusing myself of not being all of those terrible things I call myself. And it's funny how with my students, I see these students of mine who have such incredible talent. And even if they're complete beginners, even if there's somebody who's spent their entire life being a programmer and they're getting into art, I look at my students and I see nothing but incredible brilliance. The ability to overcome these gargantuan obstacles of the mind to be able to create art is something that we take for granted all the time. And even a beginner artist, when I see them accomplish something and see something with their eyes and capture something with their hands that never existed prior to that lesson, it's remarkable. And then in the same breath, I hear that student say, yeah, I know it sucks. And I'm like, dude, if you knew what you accomplished, if you knew you literally created new synapses in your brain that didn't exist, how many people in your position, how many programmers or engineers can accomplish things like this? Most people just don't bother. And that's why us artists live in such a unique, lonely place. It's because very often what we value as people and as professionals hold absolutely zero value and zero weight and zero significance to a lot of other people. And what I'm saying is, everything that you think and feel is a real thing. I feel it, you feel it, and your whole community, all those people out there. Every artist that you see on ArtStation, it doesn't matter if they're from Dubai, or they're from Singapore, or they're from Frankfurt, or they're from Wellington, or they're from Montreal, or they're from Vancouver, or they're from Santiago. It doesn't matter. Every bloody one of us have that commonality. Every one of us. And you, my friend, my very talented, beautiful, compassionate, wise, well-trained, exceptional friend, are all of the above. And I want you to stop doubting yourself. I want you to understand that art is something you're never going to completely master. It's not the point. What makes art great is not the fact that you get great at art. It's that you get great at drawing. It's that it connects you with the world around you. It makes you a professional human. It makes you a professional observer of life. And the one you should be observing more than anybody else in the world is yourself. And when you do, I recommend that you color dodge the shit out of the thing. All right? You got to do some color dodge time on yourself. Capiche? So, hopefully it didn't get too heavy today. And hopefully I didn't come across as being too much of a sage type of character. I don't want to do that. I'm very anti-culty. But hopefully this comes across as being some healthy, balanced advice. And hopefully it gives you a chance to take some weight off of your shoulders, because I know you're probably dealing with a lot of it. So with that said, I love you all with all my heart, and happy painting. Take care.